Imagine a wonderful summer day outside, the sun giving the world a glow, the leaves waving in the wind, with birds chirping and fluttering about. It's around noon, lunchtime. Traffic in the small town is light, and nothing is too busy. You're looking for a place to sit down for lunch. You walk in after making your choice, feeling the air conditioning take the summer heat off your face. The front counter is lined with stools where you could sit and watch the cooks work, or be first out the door if something villainous happened. You sit at the counter. The waitress takes your order with a courteous smile. Another waitress is hauling an order to a table with two young children. This takes place in the mid 1970s. The title waitress was still culturally appropriate rather than the acceptably androgynous server used today. You look around and watch what's going on. You are either reassured that the place was the same since last you were here, if you were a regular, or observing the details of an unfamiliar establishment. There is a paper placemat with a doodle in the corner in the seat to your right. Dark red booths line the large glass windows. Tables occupied the center of the main dining room. There were customers along the windows, all minding their business, and the one large family at the largest table on the far side of the building. The place is rustic and homey, country music coming softly from the overhead speakers, the waitress with kindly swagger to add familiarity to their courtesy. The door opens and a couple with a young child walk in and immediately sit at one of the booths closest to the bathroom. The older waitress nods to them, already collecting coffee cups and coffee. The couple has been here before, regulars like the old couple they sat next to. You think nothing of the moment as your cheeseburger shows up and your coffee is refilled. Perhaps not a cheeseburger, maybe a chicken fried steak if you've missed breakfast. You mind your food and look over to see an unoccupied newspaper. One of the local mechanics spent his time leafing through the classified ads, then resting his elbow on the paper while he finished his coffee. You open the paper and scan through the headlines. It's not for the news of the day, but catching up on the daily comics. Almost the moment you grab the paper, the couple's child starts up, getting rowdy and noisy. The boy climbs out of the booster seat, teetering over the edge of the booth. There were crayons for the kids, but the boy found them useful only as projectiles. You guess the child to be roughly 2 years old. You give the couple another glance. They're threadbare, but not ratty. The mother already showing signs of the future battles with her son. The father, a lean man with black hair and a thin, devilish beard, chatted with someone in another booth, regulars who occupied this end of the restaurant as their place since early morning. Then the son starts throwing anything within reach off the table, knocking the crayons to the floor, bawling and crying, his face tomato red, his pudgy arms flapping as his mother pulled anything and everything out of his way. After a quick cup of coffee, the couple leave, their son unable to calm down. You watch after them, annoyed. You think to yourself you've never seen a child so out of control. Those two other children at the big table were roughly the same age and were somewhat behaved. Yet this one child was entirely out of control, or would have been had they stayed longer. The child's behavior would eventually change. The story Mother told me about this was specifically tied to the rare vacation to San Diego, to SeaWorld. Obviously, I don't remember much of this, being as young as I was, and for the fact Mother and Father took turns going to dinner or lunch alone. I was so misbehaved and out of control that they couldn't bring me into public without causing a huge scene. When one went to eat, the other stayed in the hotel room, eating what came back in a doggy bag. These coffee breaks they took were never explained. They would drive from the house out of town to this little restaurant and have coffee. Perhaps there was an originating reason, or as something to do to get out of the house, and it became a habit. For much of this time in the later half of the 1970s, mother and father struggled with low income. The idea of poverty strikes up images of dirt floors and chickens running through the kitchen, photographs of the Dust Bowl Great Depression era, of tattered shoes and broken faces. It wasn't that bad, but there were instances where it seemed so. Regardless, the outrageous behavior stopped during one of these coffee breaks. As per mother's recollection, she was writing a check to pay for coffee and set the pen down. Either she was distracted or I hadn't gotten myself properly riled up yet, but the pen was left within reach. The restaurant had these paper placemats, which were always helpful for any number of purposes, Dad scribbling away something he had in a dream, or Mom doing sums of what was left in the checking account. Anyway, she remembered the pen and went to take it away from me, and saw I had drawn a series of crude squares and circles, what resembled a car. At the age of 2, I had plotted out a basic image of a car. I hadn't dashed off a statuesque foot, or a heroic figure, or a potted plant. But what was a crude car was certainly different than the tortured scribbles made in crayon. I have been drawing ever since.